As I was reflecting on Simon's story, I thought, what an incredible gauntlet of emotion he would have gone through on that day. From the excitement as they traveled to Jerusalem to the devastating detour on their journey. They could never have known what was in store for them. So much more than they could have ever dreamed or imagined. What an impact that day had on my life, on my family. It was no accident that I was there, put in the path of the teacher, the one called Jesus. I was unaware of it at the time, but we were entering Jerusalem on a day that would change the course of history and each one of us forever. It was to be our first Passover in the Holy Land, and I must say, we were more than a little excited. Although I knew the journey from Cyrene would be long, the children were coming of age, and the dangers that could hinder our safe arrival didn't seem so menacing. I was confident Alexander and Rufus would be able to help defend the family and our humble sacrifice for the Almighty should we run into trouble. These were tumultuous times, especially for people like us. Even our Jewish brethren looked upon us as scum. The very color of our skin branded us foreigners. Many were in a bad way and did not know where their next meal was coming from. Bandits who would rob and pillage were not uncommon on the long stretches of dusty roads between towns, and we would make easy targets. But to worship Jehovah, the Almighty in His temple, was something Deborah and I had been promising the boys since they were small enough to bounce on my knee. The time had come to make good that promise, so we were willing to take the risk. As we traveled, we heard reports of a religious teacher who had been teaching throughout the Judean countryside and was to be in Jerusalem for the Passover. Some say the religious leaders were claiming he was a radical, just leading people astray. But others said that he was a wonderful teacher of God, that he spoke with such power and authority that he could be our long-awaited Messiah. Could this be possible? Our excitement grew. We were not far from the city when we noticed a large crowd lining the road. As we drew closer, I could see soldiers taunting and jeering a man that was carrying a cross, a Roman instrument of execution. This was a sight I recognized, a sight no one should have to see, let alone endure, no matter what crime they had committed. Someone was going to be crucified, nailed to a cross for all to see, to remind us, do not dare raise a hand against Rome, or this will be your fate. The tyrannical rule of the Romans was palpable, and we Jews, especially those of us who were looked upon as slaves, would do well to stay out of their way. The excitement of our journey seemed to drain from our spirits as we stood waiting for the procession to pass. Deborah held the boys tightly. Their eyes filled with fear as they watched the badly beaten man fall at their feet in a cloud of dust, the stones from the road digging deep into his bleeding palms. Before I could turn to shield him from such a horrible scene, a hand grabbed my cloak and flung me to the ground. "You, slave, carry his cross," the soldier shouted. Insolence! I wanted to shout back in my frustration and anger, "I am no slave." But as I attempted to get back to my feet, the man's eyes met with mine. For a moment, time stood still. I could only see him. His body was ravaged, beaten practically beyond recognition. Yet his eyes, more filled with compassion, Not pain, not fear, not anger. Just compassion. I couldn't look away from his gaze. It was as though it was penetrating my very soul. Everything became quiet. No yelling from the crowd, no callous remarks from the soldiers. Just peace. Indescribable peace. And in that moment, as we were face to face, I felt fully known, fully accepted, fully loved, like I had never known love before. How could this be? He didn't even know me. Who was this man? What had he done? The heavy blow of the Roman sandal in my side woke me from what seemed like a dream. This man was no criminal, I thought. And as I struggled to my feet, the soldier in his taunt no longer concerned me. I was consumed by this man and the beam that seemed to be crushing him under its weight. Suddenly, I had the strength of 10 men, and the heavy beam felt more like a twig as I swung it over my shoulders. The man slowly came to his feet and did his best to walk beside me. It pained me to see him struggle. Every step must have been torture in his state. But he just continued up the road. He was relentless, as though he was on a mission, and no amount of pain or suffering was going to stop him. I couldn't take my eyes off him. I was so focused on his every step, his every breath, as though there was some great investment in it for me. And I realized this was no ordinary man. This was no ordinary day. Years have passed since that day that everything changed. Oh, it was no ordinary day, all right, as we learned from those who knew him best and then saw for ourselves. This was the teacher. This was Jesus. This was indeed our long-awaited Messiah. The confirmation of the words the prophet Isaiah had spoken so many years before. The people who walk in darkness will see a great light. For those who live in a land of deep darkness, a light will shine. Little did I know how truly blessed our pilgrimage to the Holy Land would be. Instead of bringing our sacrifice to the Almighty that day, the Lord revealed to us His greatest love, the light of the world, His one and only Son, for me, for my family, and for all who would receive Him. As I told you, this was no accident that I was there, that I was put in the path of the teacher.